got his underwear out, his shorts, and he slammed the ball. And you just have to love the theatrics of his game. You know, Michael Jordan's the same way. You ever seen Michael Jordan play? Yeah. Ladies love Michael Jordan because he got that tongue hanging out, right? Yeah. Women love it. They don't even know about the game. They're just like, Michael Jordan? Because he plays like that, right? You don't even want to check him because Michael's like, you know, and you're thinking, hey, man, don't lick me. You don't want to get too close to him, you know? But he does that. He does that flamboyant stuff in midair. And don't leave out Larry Bird, because white people get mad at me. I don't want to leave out Larry Bird. Yes, see? Larry Bird. He's been hurt this season, but see, black people mad at Larry because we think, you know, hey, y'all got all the jobs now. Don't take basketball. You know? But Larry can play his face off. Larry plays totally different than the brothers, but he gets the same job done, right? Larry comes down court, and, you know, Michael Jordan and they in the air doing this kind of stuff.
1989 was a very interesting year full of some pretty notable pop culture moments that still get referenced today. You just had to be there. Being the last year of what many consider to be the greatest decade to ever exist, 1989 was a really fun year that had such a cool and unique vibe to it, ending the 1980s with a bang and set the tone for what was to come in the 1990s decade. Throughout the year, we witnessed the release of many iconic blockbusters, the emergence of the World Wide Web, popular TV show debuts, the rise of new and exciting musical genres, new technology, major sports moments, a presidential inauguration, and some historical world-changing events, making 1989 a pivotal year for pop culture. I feel like this year is slightly underrated, overlooked, and forgotten when discussing the 80s, as most of the more notable events took place during the first half of the decade. Despite this, 1989 was a pretty fun and exciting year full of some very iconic and memorable pop culture moments that have left a lasting impact on society and generations to come. So I thought it would be fun to take a look back at one of my favorite years from the 20th century and see what life was like during one of the most polarizing and interesting years of the 1980s.
From top to bottom, what a Wednesday! On Growing Pains, a little white lie goes awry.
My parents!
Followed by Head of the Class. And
there's no reason here to be intimidated.
There's no opponent too tough for Coach. Then, Robert Guillaume is a marriage counselor.
Just once, I would like you to come home, walk into the living room naked.
Well, let's hope it's not bridge night.
The Robert Guillaume Show. Growing Pains, Head of the Class, Coach, and the premiere of The Robert Guillaume Show, Wednesday.
Like I mentioned earlier, 1989 seems to be a forgotten year from the decade, as it's often overlooked by many. 1989 in a way felt like its own year in comparison to the rest of the 80s, as the trends, vibe, and overall aesthetic felt so different from the others. I don't know how to properly explain that, cause you know, I wasn't alive this year, but it's just one of those you just had to be there moments. I feel like 1989 through 1991 were the transition years between the two decades, as there was a notable shift in pop culture around this time, and everyone was optimistic yet skeptical of the new decade on the horizon. Being a Gen Xer, witnessing the transition between the 1980s and the 1990s must have really been something for sure. In world news, we witnessed a wide variety of events, including the Exxon Valdez oil spill in Alaska, the Tiananmen Square massacre in Beijing, the Romanian Revolution, which saw the overthrow of dictator Nicolae C, and so many more. Earlier in the year, George H.W. Bush began his term as the 41st President of the United States, having been elected in the 1988 election after serving as Vice President under Ronald Reagan. He was inaugurated on January 20th at the age of 64, where he remained in office for one term until January 1993. During his presidency, a key part of his platform was his pledge not to raise taxes, which was a promise later highlighted in his inauguration speech. One major key event that President Bush led was the United States invasion of Panama on December 20th of that year, where US troops were used to overthrow the government of Manuel Noriega. And possibly the biggest news story of the year was the fall of the Berlin Wall on November 9th, which marked the end of the Cold War and the beginning of a new era of European history. This was a big deal at the time, representing the beginning of the end of the Soviet Union, as well as many other changes. This year saw the rise of many new technological advancements, as well as some new inventions that had a lasting impact on society. English computer scientist Tim Berners-Lee invented invented the World Wide Web in 1989, aka the internet as we know it today. Fun fact, but Tim Berners-Lee is actually not amongst the world's richest people because he chose not to patent the World Wide Web, instead making it a free, open standard for everyone's benefit. A true hero. 1989 was also the year where we saw the release of significant hardware like the Intel 486 processor and the first portable digital cameras, amongst many others. In terms of video games, 1989 was a significant year as the Sega Genesis and the OG Nintendo Game Boy were both released to great success. Some popular video games that were released this year included Final Flight, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Willow, Blazing Lasers, Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, Hard Drive-In, Strider, DuckTales, and Tetris, amongst many others. 1989 was a pretty eventful year for sports with some key moments that still get talked about today. At this year's Super Bowl, the San Francisco 49ers defeated the Cincinnati Bengals 20-16, winning their third Super Bowl, while the Detroit Pistons swept the LA Lakers in the NBA Finals, earning the franchise its first championship. Joe Dumars, Wayne Gretzky, Steffi Graf, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Joe Montana, Jim Abbott, and Sir Nick Faldo were amongst some of the most popular athletes of the year. On May 7th, Michael Jordan performed a last-minute game-winning jump shot that was later called The Shot. This legendary shot by MJ secured his Chicago Bulls victory over the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference playoffs. The shot is considered to be one of his greatest moments, and the game itself is regarded as a classic. Major League Baseball announced that Pete Rosa was under investigation, which led to his ban from the sport from gambling. Also in baseball news, the Loma Prieta earthquake occurred in San Francisco, affecting Games 3 of the World Series. This was a 6.9 magnitude earthquake that was a pretty big deal as it caused 63 deaths, nearly 3,800 injuries, and significant property damage, including the collapse of a section of the Bay Bridge. Because of this, the World Series was postponed due to the disaster, which had never happened up until that point. In the late 1980s, celebrity gossip was widely available in magazines and newspapers, and the tabloids were just becoming a significant source of news at the time. Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold were the subject to tabloid drama, as the two were in a highly publicized affair where they later married the following year. Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose married his longtime girlfriend Erin Everly in a surprise ceremony in Las Vegas in April, only to have their marriage annulled after 9 months, while Kelly Preston and Charlie Sheen got engaged, later to break up after an accidental firearm injury. Naomi Campbell was the first woman of color to appear on the September issue of Vogue, Rob Lowe's sex tape scandal, Andrew Dice Clay getting banned from MTV after some pretty bad jokes at the VMAs.
Rockabye baby on the treetop, your mother's a I ain't your pop.
Oh, that's no.
In the sense that,
No.
you know what I mean?
Ice Cube quitting NWA due to financial reasons, Madonna being Madonna, who we'll talk about later in this video, so stay tuned. This was also the year where Michael Jackson was first called the King of Pop at the Soul Train Heritage Awards.
And in my estimation, the true king of pop, rock, and soul, Mr. Michael Jackson.
In March, the Oscars took place where approximately 42 million viewers tuned in, making it the most watched Oscar night up until that point. This was also the year when the iconic "and the Oscar goes to" phrase trend started, which you would have thought would have been around much longer than that, but I digress. The film Rain Man won the most awards with 4 wins, including Best Directing and Best Picture. Other major winners from the night included Dustin Hoffman, Jodie Foster, Kevin Kline, Gina Davis, and John Lasseter, amongst many others. At this year's Grammys, Billy Crystal returned as the host and saw many artists take home some awards. This was also the first Grammy Awards ceremony with a separate rap section, as the genre was really starting to cement its mainstream dominance and global appeal. The big winners of the night were George Michael, who won Album of the Year for his album Faith, and Bobby McFerrin, who won Song of the Year for Don't Worry, Be Happy. Other big winners included Tracy Chapman for Best New Artist and Best Female Pop Vocal, Anita Baker for Best Female Vocal Performance, and DJ Jazzy Jeff and The Fresh Prince for Best Rap Performance, as well as many others. Side note, but the duo actually boycotted the Grammys this year, but would go on to win the same night for their hit Parents Just Don't Understand. I'm a little youngin', so someone in the comments who was alive, please educate me on the lore of this, because I just know that they boycotted, but they won a Grammy that night, so pretty interesting. But in the meantime, enjoy these random fashion looks from the year. Many millennial superstars were born in 1989, including some big names like Daniel Radcliffe, Brie Larson, Taylor Swift, Quinta Brunson, Joe Jonas, Jason Derulo, PewDiePie, Rob Gronkowski, SZA, Elizabeth Olsen, Avicii, Tyga, BB Rexa, Daniela Monáe, Carlos Peña, Lily James, Dakota Johnson, Lucy Hale, Travis Kelce, Nina Dobrev, and Chris Brown, amongst many others. We also said goodbye to many legends this year, including Lee Van Cleef, Huey P. Newton, Rebecca Schaefer, Robert Webber, Keith Whitley, Sugar Ray Robinson, Betty Davis, Mel Blanc, Salvador Dali, and Lucille Ball, as well as many others.
Okay, we're ready for rehearsal. Marker. Here we go. Close up on the eyes. The eyes. The fan. Cut the fan.
Want big, beautiful lashes that last? Use the mascara professional models demanded. CoverGirl Professional Mascara. The curved brush colors, defines every lash. The professional formula lasts without smudging, without giving up.
Give me those eyes, Carol.
Professional Mascara.
1989 was a very stacked year full of some of the most memorable and iconic film releases to date. This year saw the release of many notable sequels, directorial debuts, and original franchises that were both critical and box office successes. A few actors who made their big screen debut this year included George Clooney, Jada Pinkett Smith, Jenna Malone, Marissa Tomei, and Jon Favreau, as well as many other names. Comedy, action, sci-fi, animation, thrillers, you name it. 1989 had so much variety for everyone, making this one of the greatest years for the film industry. Robin Williams starred in one of the hottest films this year, Dead Poets Society. A classic American coming-of-age drama, Dead Poets Society takes place in the year 1959 at the fictional elite boarding school Welton Academy and tells the story of an English teacher who inspires his students through his teaching of poetry, or his fun, unique style of teaching, I should say. The film was a commercial success and received critical acclaim. It grossed $235.9 million worldwide against a $16.4 million budget and became the 5th highest grossing film of the year. Side note, but is it just me, or was there a trend of films back then that followed the lives of teachers and the importance of education? Let me know down below in the comments if you feel that way too. Many critics and fans say that this was Robin Williams' best role up until this point and one of his best in his entire career. After his death in 2014, many revealed that they were inspired to become teachers because of his portrayal of Mr. Keating, which is honestly really amazing to hear when you think about it. This film also helped launch the careers of future stars Ethan Hawke, Robert Sean Leonard, and Josh Charles to the mainstream.
Each and every one of us in this room is one day going to stop breathing, turn cold, and die. I'd like you to step forward over here.
Throughout the 1980s, Rick Moranis quickly became one of the most in-demand and popular breakout actors in Hollywood. In 1989, he was in 2 of the hottest films that were major turning points in his career. Rick starred alongside Steve Martin and Tom Hulce in the family comedy Parenthood, as well as playing the iconic Wayne Szalinski in the first installment of the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids franchise to great success. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is a classic and was one of my favorite movies growing up, as I've just found it to be so fun, unique, and nostalgic. Everything from the giant life-size sets to how some scenes were filmed really made this film one of the standouts from that year. It became the 7th highest grossing film of 1989, as well as the highest grossing live-action Disney movie up until that point, where it held the record for 5 years. In the film, Wayne Szalinski, a struggling inventor, accidentally shrinks his and his neighbor's children to the height of 1/4 of an inch. After being accidentally thrown out with the trash, the children must work together and venture their way back through a backyard wilderness filled with dangerous insects and man-made hazards. You just had to be there, as they really don't make Disney movies like this anymore, which, speaking of Disney, for over 50 years, the Walt Disney Animation Studios company had a chokehold on pop culture, creating some of the most groundbreaking, stylistic, innovative, and visually stunning animated films to ever exist, making them one of the biggest media franchises of the 20th century. As big as the Disney machine was at the time, they were struggling at the box office, so much so where the company almost went extinct 2 decades after Walt Disney's death in 1966. That all changed with the release of The Little Mermaid in late 1989. The Little Mermaid is a classic and easily one of the greatest animated films ever made. It became a global phenomenon overnight and kickstarted what we all know as the legendary Disney Renaissance of the 1990s. The Little Mermaid tells the story of a mermaid princess named Ariel who dreams of becoming human and falls in love with a human prince named Eric, where she later forges an agreement with the sea witch Ursula to become human. The film gained widespread critical acclaim for its memorable characters, visually stunning animation, great use of storytelling, romance, adventure sequences, comedy, and music, making it one of the most memorable and unique blockbusters of 1989. It was also a commercial success, grossing $84 million at the domestic box office during its initial release and $235 million during its run worldwide, becoming the 6th highest grossing film of the year, where it became the 6th highest grossing film of the year and the highest grossing animated film up until that point. Fans around the world fell in love with the story as well as the characters, including Ariel, Sebastian, King Triton, Scuttle, Flounder, Prince Eric, and Ursula, who might be one of the best Disney villains ever created. And the soundtrack included songs like Part of Your World, Under the Sea, Poor Unfortunate Souls, and Kiss the Girl, which are arguably some of the most recognizable and iconic Disney songs to exist. It's safe to say that the most iconic film release of the year was none other than the live-action Tim Burton Batman. Based on the DC Comics character of the same name, Batman is a superhero film directed by Tim Burton and was the first installment of Warner Bros. Initial Batman film series. The film stars many big names including Jack Nicholson as the Joker, Michael Keaton as Batman, and Kim Basinger as Vicky Vale. A variety of Hollywood A-listers were considered for the role of Batman, including Mel Gibson, Kevin Costner, Charlie Sheen, Tom Selleck, Bill Murray, Harrison Ford, and Dennis Quaid, amongst many other big names. At the time of its initial release, Michael Keaton's casting got major attention because the general public only saw him in goofy comedic roles rather than more subdued and serious ones. And he proved all the haters wrong with this film, as Batman became one of his most legendary and iconic roles. Batman was both a critical and financial success, earning over $400 million at the box office. Critics and audiences particularly praised Nicholson and Keaton's performances, Tim Burton's direction, the production design, and Danny Elfman's score. Fans of the franchise also felt as if Tim Burton's film focused more on the Joker rather than the Batman, which, to be honest, the villains are usually more interesting characters than the heroes of their story, but that's neither here nor there. They both honestly did really good in this film, so...
No, I'm saying
what now? It was the 6th highest grossing film in history at the time of its release and became the most anticipated film release of 1989. This live-action adaptation of Batman received 3 sequels, spin-offs, an animated series, video games, and a ton of merchandise, where it left its mark as one of the greatest superhero films ever made. Other notable films released in 1989 included Do the Right Thing, Look Who's Talking, When Harry Met Sally, Lean on Me, Born on the 4th of July, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Lethal Weapon 2, Ghostbusters 2, Driving Miss Daisy, All Dogs Go to Heaven, The Abyss, Glory, Say Anything, Pet Sematary, Steel Magnolias, Harlem Nights, Back to the Future Part 2, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusader, and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, as well as many others.
We're gonna press on, and we're gonna have the happiest Christmas since Bing Crosby tap danced with Danny Kaye.
1989 was a very fun and memorable year for television. Many shows that were released this year would become some of the most popular and decade-defining shows, as they would go on to dominate the rest of the 1990s. This was the era when you would come home from school or work and stay up all night watching your favorite TV shows to then talk about them the next day. Kids these days will never know what it was like watching the same thing at the same time and waiting for your favorite show to come on. But I digress. 1989 saw a wide variety of genres take over the zeitgeist, including everything from talk shows to cartoons to sitcoms. You just had to be there, as there was just so much variety for everyone to enjoy, making this an era of television that will be remembered forever. In April of this year, Dragon Ball Z made its debut to great success. Dragon Ball Z is a Japanese anime television series produced by Toei Animation, and I know I probably butchered that pronunciation, but it's okay. Part of the Dragon Ball media franchise, it's the sequel to the 1986 Dragon Ball television series and adapts the latter 325 chapters of the original Dragon Ball manga series created by Akira Toriyama. The series aired in Japan on Fuji TV from April 1989 to January 1996 and was later dubbed for broadcast around 81 countries worldwide. Being a massive hit amongst critics and fans, Dragon Ball Z incorporated a mix of adventure, science fiction, fantasy comedy, and martial arts, making it the perfect show for the time as there were so many shows just like this. Dragon Ball Z continues the adventures of Son Goku in his adult life as he and his companions defend the Earth against villains including aliens Vegeta, Frieza, and many more big threats. The anime's popularity has also spawned various media and merchandise that has come to represent the majority of the material within the Dragon Ball franchise, including films, home video releases, soundtracks, trading cards, video games, and other merchandise. Dragon Ball Z remains a cultural icon through numerous adaptations and re-releases, including a remastered broadcast title Dragon Ball Z Kai, and to this day, fans of the franchise cosplay and recreate many of the characters at Comic-Con events, as well as Halloween costumes yearly. Other than animation, 1989 was the year of the sitcom, as this year saw the release of many iconic sitcoms that would become household staples throughout the 90s decade. This was the era of the TGIF lineup that was really big at the time, before the popularization of other teen shows like Glee, Hannah Montana, That's So Raven, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Drake and Josh, Boy Meets World, Victorious, and iCarly. There was Saved by the Bell. In my opinion, Saved by the Bell is the quintessential teen sitcom and possibly one of the most influential from its time. Targeted at kids and teens, Saved by the Bell was broadcast in the United States on Saturday mornings, later as the flagship series in NBC's TNBC lineup. The show follows a group of high school friends and their principal at the fictional Bayside High School in Los Angeles, primarily focusing on lighthearted comedic situations. It occasionally touches on serious social issues such as substance abuse, puberty, driving under the influence, homelessness, peer pressure, women's rights, friendships, and environmental issues, as well as many other topics. Lasting for 4 seasons, the series starred Mark Paul Gosselaar as Zach Morris, Dustin Diamond as Samuel Screech, Lark Voorhees as Lisa Turtle, Dennis Haskins as Principal Belding, Tiffany Amber Thiessen as Kelly Kapowski, Elizabeth Berkley as Jessie Spano, and Mario Lopez as AC Slater. The show appealed to Gen Xers who were teenagers and young adults during this time period, where it perfectly encapsulated the bright, vibrant aesthetic of the 1980s and fun, carefree, youthful nature of the 1990s.
I will be your Yoda. And I will be your everything.
And I will be gone.
Jerry Seinfeld was an up-and-coming comedian during the 1980s before getting the opportunity of a lifetime of getting his own show, which is something that many would dream of. No shade to Jerry, but there's other male comedians from the 80s that I personally think are funnier and would have been better choices to star in their own sitcom, like Billy Crystal, Eddie Murphy, Robin Williams, or even Rowan Atkinson, to name a few, but I digress. In July of this year, Seinfeld made its debut as everyone's favorite show about nothing. Created by Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld, the show originally aired on NBC from July 5th, 1989 to May 14th, 1998, with a total of 9 seasons and 180 episodes, making it one of the longest running sitcoms in American television history. Its ensemble cast stars Seinfeld as a fictionalized version of himself and focuses on his personal life with 3 of his friends: best friend George Costanza, played by Jason Alexander, ex-girlfriend Elaine Benz, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and the eccentric and goofy neighbor from across the hall, Cosmo Kramer, played by Michael Richards. Seinfeld is set mostly in and around the titular character's apartment in Manhattan's Upper West Side in New York City, and this show was pretty much a precursor to shows like Living Single and Friends, as those shows would come out later in the 90s. Like I said earlier, this show is pretty much about nothing, and it's just your typical slice of life show with no major plot or crazy gimmick, which just made it so much more relatable to viewers. Seinfeld is universally regarded as one of the greatest and most influential American shows of all time, as well as a defining series for Gen Xers and older millennials.
He's an importer-exporter.
I'm an architect.
Really? Yeah. Well, what do you design?
Railroads.
Other popular TV shows that came out this year included The Arsenio Hall Show, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Baywatch, Quantum Leap, Tales from the Crypt, Life Goes On, Doogie Howser MD, Coach, Major Dad, Hey Dude, Eureka's Castle, America's Funniest Home Videos, McGee and Me, Family Matters, and The Simpsons, amongst many others.
Hi, interested in the Toyota Celica? It's beautiful, and it's an excellent value. And right now, the Celica GTS is available with a special extra value package of features, like air conditioning, AM/FM radio with cassette, and much more. At savings of up to $1,050, it's a great value. So you like it?
I love it.
Toyota's special option package makes the Celica a great buy.
Who could ask for anything more?
1989 was a really fun and exciting year for pop music, as there was just so many iconic and major releases that defined the decade and had us all in a chokehold all year. I feel like 1989 is one of the most forgotten and overlooked years in music when people mention the 1980s as a whole, which is crazy to me because this year was truly an iconic time for music listeners, but I digress. Maybe this year gets overlooked because there were more exciting and groundbreaking releases earlier in the decade, and people probably just see this year as an extension of the 90s. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know, just dream with me here, people. This was a transitional year marked by the continued mainstream dominance of pop, hair metal, and new jack swing, while grunge, alternative rock, and hip hop began their ascent in the cultural zeitgeist. After getting kicked out of the popular boy band New Edition due to his questionable behavior and antics, Bobby Brown went on to achieve massive success as a solo artist, where he dominated the late 80s as the next big thing in music. In the summer of 1988, Bobby Brown released his now iconic sophomore album Don't Be Cruel to the public, where it became one of the most recognizable albums of that time. For this project, he worked with hit-making songwriting and production duo Babyface and L.A. Reid, where they gave him his signature sound. Don't Be Cruel incorporates elements of various genres including new jack swing, R&B, funk, dance, and soul. This album received extremely positive reviews from music critics and fans who considered it to be one of the standouts from that era. It was far more successful than his debut album, spending a total of 6 weeks on top of the Billboard 200, and later became the best-selling album of 1989 in the United States. All 5 singles from the album peaked within the top 10 on the Billboard charts during 1988 and 1989, with major hits including the title track, Don't Be Cruel, Rock Witcha, Ronnie, and Every Little Step, as well as many others. My Prerogative was the biggest single from this album, where it became Bobby's first #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100. My Prerogative was written by Bobby as a response to the criticism he received for his firing from New Edition. Lyrically, it's about taking control over your life and doing whatever you want regardless of how people feel or think. This song was just everywhere that year and is considered to be his signature hit. As of now, Don't Be Cruel has sold over 12 million copies worldwide and is regarded as one of the most influential R&B records ever, while solidifying his status as one of the kings of R&B. Before being one of the original judges on American Idol during the 2000s, Paula Abdul made a name for herself being one of the biggest pop stars of the 1980s. In 1988, newcomer Paula Abdul released her debut studio album, Forever Your Girl, to great success. The album was Paula's breakthrough into the music industry after being a choreographer for high-profile clients including the California Raisins, George Michael, ZZ Top, Duran Duran, and most notably Janet Jackson. At the time of its release, it was the most successful debut album and was the first time that a female artist scored 4 US Billboard Hot 100 #1 singles from her first album. Primarily a dance pop record, it featured elements of new jack swing as well as R&B. The album was eventually certified 7 times platinum in the US by the RIAA and has sold over 12 million copies worldwide. It also includes big hits like Straight Up, Forever Your Girl, Cold Hearted, and Opposites Attract, making it one of the albums that has one of the most #1 singles. Paula Abdul was everywhere in 1989 and was the newest it girl of pop music. In 1987, rock band Guns N' Roses released their debut album Appetite for Destruction to international success. This was one of those albums that had massive longevity and staying power for many years after its release, where they were just inescapable as the songs and videos were in heavy rotation during the late 80s. You just had to be there. Guns N' Roses made a hard rock, heavy metal, and glam rock classic that is widely considered to be one of the best rock albums ever made. Appetite for Destruction became a commercial success after the band had toured toured and received significant airplay with the singles Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City, and Sweet Child of Mine, as well as many others. The album went on to peak at #1 on the US Billboard 200, and it became the 7th best-selling album of all time in the United States, as well as the best-selling debut album in the country. With over 30 million copies sold, it's considered one of the best-selling albums of all time worldwide. Upon initial release, this album was actually not well received by contemporary American critics, where many complained that its massive success with consumers was fostered by the taboo of sex, substance abuse, and rock and roll during the 1980s, when much of the cultural atmosphere in the United States became informed by the Reagan-Bush administration, the AIDS crisis, and the popularity of MTV. Although critics were originally ambivalent towards the album, Appetite for Destruction has received retrospective acclaim and has been viewed as one of the greatest albums of all time. It's also one of the quintessential albums of the 1980s decade. American boy band New Kids on the Block released their highly anticipated sophomore album Hangin' Tough in 1988 to great success. Fun fact, but the boys almost got dropped from their label after disappointing sales from their debut album released back in 1986. Hangin' Tough is widely regarded as the group's breakthrough album, gaining positive reviews for their musical transition from bubblegum pop to urban contemporary, blended with popular rock music. The album led the group to success due to the emergence of their music to radio airplay and creation of music videos for each released single, showcasing the group's visual appeal. The popularity was eventually built as they made TV appearances and embarked on promotional tours. By the end of 1989, the album topped the US Billboard 200 charts, and they became the ultimate pop boy group during that time. This album spawned multiple Billboard hits including Please Don't Go Girl, You Got It, The Right Stuff, I'll Be Loving You Forever, Hangin' Tough, and CoverGirl. All were top 10 hits on the Billboard charts, making New Kids on the Block the first teen act to gain such chart success at the time. With sales of more than 15 million copies worldwide, Hangin' Tough became the group's best-selling album and second best-selling album of 1989 in the US, right behind Bobby Brown's Don't Be Cruel. Other popular albums released in 1989 were De La Soul's debut, 3 Feet High and Rising, Phil Collins' But Seriously, Richard Marx's Repeat Offender, Bonnie Raitt's Nick of Time, the Batman soundtrack, the Little Mermaid soundtrack, Don Henley's The End of Innocence, The Cure's Disintegration, Neil Young's Freedom, Babyface's Tender Lover, Pixies' Doolittle, Tom Petty's Full Moon Fever, Nirvana's debut album Bleach, the B-52's Cosmic Thing, and Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation 1814, as well as many others. Without a doubt, the biggest artist of 1989 was the queen of controversy herself, Madonna. On March 29th, 1989, Madonna released her 4th studio album Like a Prayer, where it became one of the most popular and highly anticipated album releases of the year. This album was a massive success and turning point in her career, where she was taken more serious as an artist rather than just being seen as a pop star with a few dance hits. Like a Prayer became her most introspective body of work up until that point, and is one of her most notable albums. In true Madonna fashion, it's a pop record with elements of rock and dance pop. Its lyrics deal with personal themes she had been too afraid to approach on previous albums, including her Catholic upbringing, her troubled marriage to actor Sean Penn, the death of her mother, and her relationship with her father. Upon its release, Like a Prayer received universal acclaim from music critics, who praised its introspective tone, cohesiveness, and Madonna's increased artistic merit. It was also an international success, reaching the top of the charts in 20 countries, and was certified quadruple platinum in the United States by the Recording Industry Association of America. The album featured many hits that performed really well on the charts. Express Yourself and Cherish both peaked at the #2 spot and were some of the hottest songs of the year, while the title track Like a Prayer became the album's biggest hit. Which, speaking of, Like a Prayer was the album's lead single, being co-written and produced by Madonna after feeling like she needed to cater to a more adult audience. Like a Prayer is a pop, rock, dance pop, and gospel song that also incorporates elements of funk and new wave. It features background vocals from a choir and also a rock guitar, with many sexual innuendos, of course. It was acclaimed by music critics upon release and was a global commercial success, becoming Madonna's 7th #1 hit on the US Billboard Hot 100, topping the Hot 100 for 3 consecutive weeks, and also topping the charts in many other countries. The song's music video received a ton of backlash and attention due to its religious imagery. It had everything you could imagine from a Madonna video at the time: controversy, religious imagery, sexual innuendos, and a lot of camp. The video was so controversial that the Vatican actually condemned it, while family and religious groups protest against dances broadcast on television. They boycotted products by soft drink manufacturer Pepsi, who had used the song in their commercial that year. Because of the backlash, Pepsi actually canceled their sponsorship contract with Madonna, but allowed her to retain the $5 million fee. Despite all of the controversy, the music video is deemed by many as iconic and one of her best, as it was in heavy rotation, making it an 80s MTV staple. As of now, this album has sold 15 million copies worldwide, making it one of the highest selling female albums ever, and one of the most influential albums to date. It also further solidified Madonna's title as the ultimate queen of pop. Other popular songs from this year included If I Could Turn Back Time from Cher, Wild Thing from Tone Loc, Every Rose Has Its Thorn from Poison, Wind Beneath My Wings from Bette Midler, She Drives Me Crazy from the Fine Young Cannibals, Giving You the Best That I Got from Anita Baker, Love Shack from the B-52s, Listen to Your Heart from Roxette, Right Here Waiting from Richard Marx, Miss You Much from Janet Jackson, Girl You Know It's True from Milli Vanilli, Two Hearts from Phil Collins, Look Away from Chicago, and Smooth Criminal from Michael Jackson, amongst many other hits. 1989 was a pretty memorable and fun year from start to finish, with some really big moments, making it one of the greatest years for pop culture. Other major things that happened this year included Queen Elizabeth II being the wealthiest person in the UK, Lexus being introduced to the US market, the first Reebok pump shoes being launched into the mainstream, McDonald's attempt at making pizza, the popularization of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles action figures, the launch of Polly Pockets, and the opening of Walt Disney World's MGM Studios, now called Hollywood Studios, amongst many other things. So yeah, that was 1989, a pretty fun and nostalgic year from start to finish. And I feel like this year ended the 1980s decade with a bang, as this year really set the tone for what was to come in the 1990s. Like I said earlier, I feel like 1989 was a pretty overlooked year when discussing the 1980s decade, but I think that's simply because the rest of the decade was just stacked with so many major moments that happened, where by the end of the decade it was just like light work for the 80s, you know? So anyways, I want to know from you guys, what were your favorite movies of the year? Do you remember watching any of these films in theaters? Were you a fan of Seinfeld or The Simpsons or Saved by the Bell? Do you remember all of the controversy with Madonna? Did you have Guns N' Roses album? Were you a fan of Bobby Brown or Paula Abdul or New Kids on the Block? Do you remember watching any of these music videos on TV? Did you watch the VMAs this year? Did you watch the Grammys this year? What did you think of Michael Jordan's iconic shot? What did you think of The Little Mermaid? And what did you think of the year 1989 as a whole? Let me know down below. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. I really appreciate each and every one of you all. Feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more fun videos just like this. See ya!